Goodbye, Elijah. Chapter 5. He is white albino. His hair is black, mixed with white highlights. His eyes are yellowish-green, making him look very frightening. "How the hell did you get in here?" George shouted. Elijah started to feel nervous. He took a step back and hid his face with his hat. Ember hid behind Elijah. He is tall and wide, so he is good to hide behind. "George, is he going to hurt us?" Elijah asked, shaking nervously. "It's me, Gary, your brother," the Niggi guy tells George. "Gary? Why so rough?" George asked. Gary is George's brother. He lives in the hospital, around the block. He always goes to George's home because he knows George is always his best way to help him out. "You got that tall blue Niggi guy as your buddy now." "He's big," Gary pointed out. "His name is Elijah," George tells Gary. "Hello," George waves to Gary. "My skin is albino now. I don't know what happened," Gary said. "Why don't the doctors tell you why?" George asked. Gary started to put on a face as if he were hiding something from George. "Why doesn't he understand why he's albino, George?" Elijah asked, taking little steps ahead. "Hey you, don't get into this," Gary shouted. "Don't yell at Elijah like that," George demanded, getting annoyed. "Sorry, man, I just think my skin needs treatment," Gary went on. "We will figure it out in the morning. I'm exhausted," George told him. "Okay, I got ya," Gary said. Elijah went to sleep. He hugged his pillow and prayed to God. "I love you, Mommy and Daddy. I know you're in heaven now, watching me," Elijah says to himself, as his eyes slowly close and he drifts off to sleep. Gary seemed angry. He felt as if Elijah meant more to George than he did. He sat down at the table. He noticed Ember fixing her hair and her burqa. "George doesn't love me. I am not supposed to be non-loved from my own brother," he says, very angered. George heard what Gary said and stormed down to the kitchen. "I love you. I never want to hear you say that again," George demanded. "Elijah is my friend. He can't live on his own. His parents died when he was young, and he can't be put into N1 conditions. How dare you think I don't love you? You're my brother. I do everything for you. Sometimes I feel you're a Niggi man who is in major denial. It's not healthy for Niggis. Stop thinking like that," he storms out in sympathy. Tears started to slowly fall down George's face. He wiped them onto his sleeve. The moisture soaked the material. Elijah heard the voices and came down to the kitchen. "I am just a rotten Niggi. I know most Niggis are nice. But I am one of the few ones who are angry and that are in denial," Gary shouted. "What's going on, George?" Elijah asked, getting worried. Ember quickly moved into the living room so she didn't have to get in the middle of the situation. "Snap out of it," George told Gary. "No, I will not do what I don't want to," Gary shouted. Gary looked at Elijah and made an angry face. "Hey you, big horse, stop stealing my brother from me," Gary shouted at Elijah. He got up and punched Elijah. His mind went blank, and the anger forced out at Elijah. "Cut it out," George demanded. Elijah hit the floor. His hat flew across the floor. His palms started to shake in fear.